about that time for us to get off. So cut the rattle, yo, get set in your saddle. Mount your horse, the countdown begun. The groove be chill, surprise. You don't see nothing, all of a sudden, the curtain rise.
Hello and welcome to another video in my series on how to make gold in World of Warcraft. Today we're going to look at jewelcrafting, and we're going to have an in-depth look at the different cuts available and which cuts are profitable and which cuts we should avoid. Now, to understand which cuts are profitable, we need to look at which cuts are being used by classes. So we will start with the red gems, and what I did was I went ahead and I looked at Icy Veins, which is a website with a lot of different class guides, and it's very popular. A lot of people use it to understand what they should be gemming and what they should be enchanting for. So I had a look at Icy Veins, and basically I went through, and for every class I noted down which gems they would be using, and so that way we could understand what gems people were going to be looking to buy when they went to the auction house. So with the Primordial rubies, which are the red gems, and a little bit of information about the red gems, they're a primary stat gem, and they're primarily used by DPS and healers, and they can be prospected from all Pandarian ore, and you can transmute them from a Pandarian garnet. If you've got a transmute master and you transmute it from a Pandarian garnet, you've got a chance to proc up to 5 of these gems from a single transmute. A transmute costs 1 Pandarian garnet and 1 golden lotus. So I had a look at that, and the profitable cuts, the cuts that are in use for the Primordial rubies, are the bold Primordial rubies, and they're used by Ret Paladins, Frost and Unholy Death Knights, and they're 160 strength. So they go into the red slots of the Ret Pallies and Frost and Unholy Death Knights. The brilliant Primordial rubies, the plus 160 intellect rubies, they're used by Resto Druids and Demonology and Destruction Warlocks, Mistweaver Monks and Elemental Shamans, and again they use them in their red slot. The delicate Primordial rubies, the plus 160 agility gems, they're used by Feral Druids, all 3 Rogue specs and all 3 Hunter specs, and also Enhancement Shamans. Sometimes you can turn a profit on the precise Primordial rubies, because I noticed in a lot of the class guides it recommended if people were struggling to hit the expertise cap that they should be using the precise Primordial rubies, the plus 320 expertise, but they're not really as, they're not going to be anywhere near as profitable as the primary stat gems, purely because even if you're under the hit cap, it's usually still a greater DPS game or a greater healing throughput if you're just going to gear for your primary stat, rather than expertise. So we move on and we look at the next coloured gem, the River's Heart, the blue gem. Now the River's Heart is a secondary stat gem, and they're primarily used by tanks and healers. Can be prospected from all Pandarian ore, and they transmute from the Lapis Lazuli gems, the uncommon blue gems. Now the profitable cuts which come from the River's Heart are the solid River's Heart, which are a plus 240 stamina gem, and they are used by protection paladins who are gearing for avoidance and protection warriors. The sparkling River's Heart, which is plus 320 spirit, they're used by healing classes, and they're mainly used by balanced druids also, sorry, not just healing classes. Balanced druids can also use them if they're struggling for mana. Holy paladins and discipline and holy priests will use them in their blue slots, and also restoration shamans. So again, gearing for extra mana. Extra mana regen. Very, very useful for healing classes. Also, the rigid River's Heart, the plus 320 hit gems, can also be quite profitable, because a lot of players underneath the hit cap, such as fresh alts, people just digging level 90 and trying to get their gear running, Dungeon Finder, LFR or whatever, it's often quite a DPS game to hit cap. And because you're not using, it's a blue socket, so there's no primary stat gems for a blue socket, So it's not a massive DPS loss to use a secondary stat gem, such as a 3 hit gem in a blue socket. With the expertise gem, you've got to use a red socket, so you know you could probably get more DPS from gemming your primary stats. But with a blue gem, you've only really got a choice of a blue, or you've got a choice of a blue or a purple, and the purple is only an 80 primary stat and 160 secondary stat. So it's not a massive DPS lane, and in fact it might be a DPS gain to use a hit gem. If you're on a PvP server, or if you're on a PvE server with quite a lot of people who do arenas and battlegrounds for fun, you can also sometimes turn a profit on the Stormy River's Heart, the plus 160 PvP power gems. But if you're on a PvE server, probably your best shot is just to go with the solid, sparkling and rigid River's Heart gems, and just to ignore the Stormy River's Heart. If you've got an abundance of blue gems, it wouldn't hurt to craft a few Stormy and just throw them on the auction house, just see how they sell, test the water, kind of thing. We move on to the yellow gems, and the yellow gems are the Sun's Radiance, which are a secondary stat gem. They're used by a whole range of different classes, so I mean most classes have some use for a yellow gem, and they can prospect from any Pandarian ore that you come across, and they transmute from Sunstone uncommon yellow gems. So a Sunstone plus a Golden Lotus can give you a chance with a Transmute Master to proc up to 5 Sun's Radiance gems. Now the Sun's Radiance gems are actually they're probably the most in demand gem in the game at the moment, and that's because a lot of classes really use the quick Sun's Radiance, the plus 320 haste gem. In fact, they're used by balanced druids, frost mages, combat rogues, windwalker monks, red paladins, prot paladins which are gear in haste, shadow priest, enhancement shamans, affliction warlocks, and arms warriors. So you know, clearly you can see just with even that one particular cut there, a lot of demand for it from a lot of different specs. But also the fractured Sun's Radiance, the plus 320 mastery, are used by a lot of tanking classes, also arcane mages, blood death knights, brewmaster monks, and protection paladins which are gearing for avoidance. And the smooth Sun's Radiance, the plus 320 critical strike, used by balance and guardian druids, fire mages, arms warriors, and fury warriors. If you're on a PvP server again, or if you're on a PvE server with a lot of people that like to do arena, you may make a profit on Mystic Sun's Radiance, plus 320 PvP resilience. But I mean, honestly, with the high demand for the quick Sun's Radiance, probably you're going to be selling so many of them that you won't really have much left over yellow gems. So I would probably avoid to cut the Mystic Sun's Radiance there, because you know clearly there's a high demand for quick Sun's Radiance. I would probably just focus on those 3 gems there, and just ignore the Mystic Sun's Radiance, unless of course you're on a PvP server, in which case go ahead, I'm sure they'll sell just fine on a PvP server. There's one other cut for the yellow gems, the subtle Sun's Radiance, the plus 320 dodge, and unfortunately it's not used by any class in the game. If anybody is in fact using a plus 320 dodge gem, they're doing it wrong, because according to Icy Veins, there is no use. I looked through all specs, all classes, and none of them are using plus 320 dodge. So really a pretty useless gem. If we move on to the wild jades, the green gems, they're a secondary stat gem, and again they're used by almost all classes in the game in one cut or another. Can be prospected again from any Pandarian ore, and they transmute from an Alexandrite, and they fit in a blue or a yellow socket. So we've got quite a number of cuts for this one that are profitable. We're starting off with the Possum Wild Gem, Possum Wild Jade even, which is a plus 160 mastery and a plus 120 stamina gem, and again used by tanks. It's the Blood Death Knights, Protection Paladins, which are gearing for avoidance, and Protection Warriors. And the Misty Wild Gem, also a profitable cut, plus 160 Spirit, plus 160 Crit. Can be used by Balanced Druids, Mistweaver Monks, Discipline and Holy Priests, and Restoration Shamans. The Sensei's Wild Jade, which is a plus 160 hit gem, plus 160 mastery also. Can be used by arcade mages, brewmaster monks, and protection paladins, which are gearing for avoidance. The Piercing Wild Jade, the plus 160 critical strike and a plus 160 hit, used by fire mages, arms and fury warriors. I know for I believe it's arms warriors, crit is a very important stat. I've even sold some crit and stamina gems purely because the warriors were looking for the crit on it. The Lightning Wild Jade, plus 160 haste, plus 160 hit, used by, again, a very popular gem, this one, very much in demand. Frost mages, Windwalker monks, retribution paladins, protection paladins which are gearing for haste, shadow priests, enhancement shamans, affliction warlocks, and sometimes arms warriors. The Zen Wild Jade, plus 160 spirit and plus 160 mastery, used by holy paladins, discipline and holy priests, and restoration shamans. And lastly, the Energized Wild Jade, plus 160 haste and plus 160 spirit, used by holy paladins, shadow priests, and restoration shamans. So then again, we can see again quite a lot of profitable cuts to come from the green gems there. We move on to the purple gems now, the Imperial Amethysts. They're a primary and a secondary stat gem, so a mixture of both primary and secondary stats. Used by almost all classes in the game. Prospected from Pandarian, any type of Pandarian ore. Transmuted from rogue stones. And they fit in a blue or red socket. But I doubt very much anyone would be using them in a red socket. Possibly tanks, I guess. But for DPS and healers, they're always going to use them in a blue socket. And the profitable cuts for the purple gems, the Glinting Imperial Amethyst, plus 80 agility and plus 160 hit. And they're used by all three hunters, all three hunter specs, all three rogue specs, and also feral druids, which are ignoring the socket bonus. The Etched Imperial Amethyst, plus 80 strength, plus 160 hit, used by Frost and Unholy Death Knights, Retribution Paladins. The Veiled Imperial Amethyst, plus 80 intellect and plus 160 hit, used by Demonology and Destruction Warlocks. And lastly, the Purified Imperial Amethyst, used by Restoration Druids, Elemental Shamans, and Mistweaver Monks. Sometimes profitable to make the Guardian's Imperial Amethyst, which is plus 160 expertise and plus 120 stamina. Because sometimes they are used by protection paladins and protection warriors in their red sockets. So not quite as profitable as the other four cuts, but can sometimes, if you've got an abundance of purple gems, maybe cut one or two Guardians Imperial Amethyst, see how they sell, but you're probably going to find they don't sell as well as the others. And finally, the Vermillion Onyx, really the red gems of the Mr. Pandaria. If in Cataclysm it was all about the red gems, in Mr. Pandaria I've noticed at least that the orange gems sell, by far the most, probably 2 to 1, except for maybe possibly the only other gem that sells close would be the yellow gems. But for example, the red gems, for every 1 red gem that I sell, I would probably sell 2 orange gems in different cuts. Now the orange gems of Vermillion Onyx are a primary and secondary stat gem, again a mixture of primary and secondary stats. They're used by almost all classes in the game. In fact, I think they are used by every class in the game in one color or another, in one form or another. They prospect from all Pandarian ore, and they transmute from tiger opals, and they fit into a red and yellow socket. There's many cuts in demand on these, so I've got 2 pages of cuts for you to look at now. We will start off with the Fierce Vermilion Onyx, which is plus 80 strength and plus 160 haste. They're used by Frost Death Knights, which are using a 2-handed weapon, and also Unholy Death Knights, Rat Paladins, and Arms Warriors. And we have Reckless Vermilion Onyx, which is plus 80 intellect and plus 160 haste. And they're used by Balanced Druids, Restoration Druids, Frost Mages, Shadow Priests, Elemental Shamans, and they can be used by all 3 Warlock specs depending on what they're aiming for. The Adept Vermillion Onyx, plus 80 agility and plus 160 mastery, used by Feral Druids, Brewmaster Monks, Assassination Rogues and Enhancement Shamans. The Artful Vermilion Onyx, plus 80 intellect, plus 160 mastery, used by Restoration Druids, Arcane Mages, Demonology and Destruction Warlocks. Deadly Vermilion Onyx, plus 80 agility, plus 160 crit, used by all Hunter specs. Potent Vermilion Onyx, plus 80 intellect and plus 160 critical strike, used by Balanced Druids, Fire Mages, Mistweaver Monks and Demonology Warlocks. And Keen Vermilion Onyx, plus 160 expertise and plus 160 mastery, used by Blood Death Knights, Arcane Mages, Brewmaster Monks and Protection Paladins, which are gearing for avoidance. Deft Vermilion Onyx, plus 80 agility and plus 160 haste, used by Windwalker Monks, all 3 rogue specs and enhancement shamans. And finally, Inscribed Vermilion Onyx, which is plus 80 strength and plus 160 critical strike, used by arms and fury warriors. Those cuts are most profitable. Sometimes you can turn a profit on Skillful Vermilion Onyx, plus 80 strength and plus 160 mastery. They're used by Frost Knights, which are dual wielding, so a Frost Knight using 2 one-handed weapons, Frost Death Knights. Crafty Vermilion Onyx, plus 160 expertise, plus 160 crit, used by Guardian Druids, tanking Druids. And Wicked Vermilion Onyx, plus 160 expertise, plus 160 haste, used by Protection Paladins, which are gearing for haste. They can sometimes turn a profit, but if you're probably going to find that you don't have enough orange gems. You know that the demand is going to outweigh the supply, so probably I would only focus on the profitable cuts, the most profitable cuts, and ignore the ones which are sometimes profitable, unless of course there's nobody on your server cutting these 3 gems here used by those 3 classes, in which case cut them, and you know, you can whack up the price and people will have to buy them. People may be just focusing on the profitable cuts and ignoring these 3 here, which are used by only 3 classes. So you can probably potentially, you know, just jack up the market and turn over a quite big profit on those 3 gems. It really depends on what's happening on your server and how active the other jewel crafters are. So having looked at all those cuts and seen which ones are used by which classes and which specs, we can come up with a list, and we can come up with a list of the 10 most profitable gems in the game at the moment. Starting from most and ending with in least on the top 10 most in demand gems, we've got the Quicksand's Radiance at the top, clear winner with 10 specs using the plus 320 haste gems. And then we have the Delicate Primordial Rubies and the Reckless Vermilion Onyx, and also the Lightning Wild Jade, all being used by 8 specs. Then the Glinting Imperial Amethyst, used by 7 different specs. The Brilliant Primordial Ruby, used by 5 specs. Sparkling River's Heart, again another 5 specs. Deft Vermilion Onyx, 5 specs. Misty Wild Jade, 5 specs, and Smooth Sun's Radiance, 5 specs. So the top 10 most profitable gems there. If you're not going to be cutting all of these profitable gems, if you've only got a small pool of gems to use and you're wondering what are the 10 most profitable gems I can focus on, there we go. You can just do those, list them, and they're probably going to sell. You wouldn't necessarily have to camp the auction house to sell those. They'd probably sell quite well. There's a large demand for them. And so that's our look at the most profitable gems done today. In the future, I'm going to do another one of these videos, and we'll do one for inscription. So we'll look at which glyphs, and we'll do it in a similar format to this. We'll look at the different subtypes of glyph, and which ones are actually used and which ones are not used. And also we'll do one for enchanting as well. But of course that's going to be in some other videos. If this video helped you in any way, if you found it useful, please comment, rate or subscribe. Give me some feedback. If you think I've missed any gems, you know, I don't know all classes in the game. I looked at icy veins to get an idea for the classes I wasn't sure of. So if you think I have missed a gem, you know, I might be overlooking something where I could turn more profit, please let me know. I'll be happy to include it in the video. And if also one other thing, if you did find this video helpful, I'm trying to get some followers on YouTube now. If you could share this video or recommend it to a friend and help me get some get an audience, and you know, continue making these videos, because I'm really enjoying making these videos, and I hope you're enjoying watching them, and I hope that they're useful to you. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you for the next video.